What is manly piety? Hi, I'm Mike Mason. This is the Immortal Combat Podcast. The Immortal Combat Podcast is the podcast arm of Very Christi. Very Christi is a Catholic lay apostolate devoted to help men attain the full stature of Christ by growing strong in mind, body, and spirit. If you'd like to learn more about our work, you can see us online at verychristi.com or stjosephsociety.org. All right, gentlemen, this is Lent 2025, day 20. Holy cow. Day 20. It's hard to believe that we are already halfway through Lent, which is just wild. I think every year the 40 days feels like it's gonna be really long, and then it just clips along. Before we know it, we'll be at Easter Sunday. Guys, I hope your disciplines are going really well. I hope to this point you've had lots of successes, of course, through God's grace. I hope you've had some setbacks because normally, reflecting on my Lents in the past, the Lents that I fail to hit it 100% of the time means that I'm pushing myself and growing a little bit. So hopefully you guys are pushing yourself a little bit. Maybe you've had a few failures, but hopefully most of it's been a success. But I was thinking about what to talk about, at this halfway point. And I thought of a text called The Young Man's Guide by Father Lasance. Okay. The Young Man's Guide by Father Lasance, a great little book, just a little guy. And he talks about what manly piety is. And I want to read you guys a couple passages from this because I think he summarizes really well a desire of what a man's heart is. Okay. I work with lots of guys of all ages. I teach high school and we have our Very Christi group in there, and we have 25 just awesome guys. And I get the privilege to lead those guys alongside a few other adult leaders. And the conversations we have are just incredible. I mean, the students are awesome. They're locked in. And it's just really great. And one of the things I've gotten from this book that would help them is helping them define what exactly is manly piety. And I want to read a couple passages for you guys. So this is on manliness, according to Father Lasance. Manliness implies self-control, conscientiousness, moral courage, fearless discharge of duty in the face of obloquy and prejudice, firm determination to do what is right because it is right and pleasing to God, without regard to human respect, expediency, or popularity, a steadfast adherence to one's religious principles and convictions, in a word, an upright Christian character. Strive to be a manly man. A manly man is a man of character, one who is controlled by conscience, one who does his duty under all circumstances, one who is swayed by reason, by faith, and by moral principles, not by every passing impulse, not by transient emotions, not by fancy or caprice, not by human respect. A manly man is one who is endowed with the courage of his convictions, one who is conscientious, sincere, truthful, honest, upright, just, and charitable, unselfish and magnanimous, kind and gentle, one who practices what he preaches, whose life is consistent with his faith, one who heeds the admonition of his Creator, walk before me and be perfect. One, in fine, who may be called truly a Christian gentleman, who seeks to please God first and always, and then observes the golden rule. As you would do that to men, should do to you, do also to them in like manner. Wow, what great stuff. He talks about the fact, one of the things that stands out to me, and I try to encourage you guys with, our world tempts us and encourages us to follow our emotions or to follow our feelings or to follow our appetites. The world wants to blow us around like we're in a boat with no oars out on the sea. Okay, every wind of doctrine, as St. Paul says, or every wind of temptation just blows us here or there. The world wants us to be driftwood, floating lazily to our destruction. What a manly man is, and he gets it right here, we should be men who build our lives around truth, around moral principles, who aren't afraid to stand by our convictions, men who can be strong and firm when necessary, men who are gentle when appropriate. A Christian man shouldn't be nice, shouldn't be a doormat, but we should be gentle, compassionate, and strong and principled and honorable as well. So he just strikes this. Too many of our guys, we are tempted to follow our every whim and fancy. That's not what a man does. A man stands on the rock that is Christ. He builds his life on the moral principles revealed through divine revelation, and stands on the principles of who God is, who we are, and who the world is. It's awesome. He goes on and says this. Do you know what manly piety consists? In this, that man's will, which constitutes his manliness, be employed in its full strength for God's honor and glory in his holy service. Men, do you think of yourselves in that way? That our will, which is going to shape who we are, that our number one desire, the number one thing on our hearts and minds should be to please God, our Creator, to live for God's honor and glory, that he should be magnified through our activity. That when people look at us, they see that's a man after God's own heart. Lasance continues, the world needs men, not grand geniuses or plausible talkers. It is not sentimentality and dreams that will save it, but acts and deeds. It was not merely by revelations and visions that the saints became such, but by spiritual combat, by self-denial, and overcoming the enemies of their soul. Men, we need to be marked by our words, not so much our words, but our deeds, our acts, our devotions. Guys, too many men in our society talk and talk and talk. We should be marked out by what we do, okay? Our convictions should be on full display because we can't be moved away from our moral principles. We can't be moved away from divine revelation. We can't be moved off of the post where God's placed us, no matter what that is. Guys, this is the type of men I want my sons to be, the type of men I want my students to be, and the type of man I hope to be myself. God made us for spiritual combat. A man's soul is fired by self-denial, not indulgence. The world tells us that if we indulge, we'll be happy. That's not true. We want to live for something bigger in ourselves, which means we need to practice self-denial and to overcome the enemies of our souls. And we talked about this on our first episode of this series in Lent, that the enemies of our soul is the world, the flesh, and the devil. Okay, the world tempts us to live for material goods or honors and things in this life, to be ambitious about the things of this world and slothful about the things of the next. Our flesh, which is inside of us, wars against us. That original sin's concupiscence, trying to drag our soul down, bind us to things of this world. We need to break free of that through discipline. Okay. And then lastly, the devil's real. And he generally doesn't reveal himself in things that are super scary or anything. He reveals himself by a tiny little voice that sounds like our own, that when we screw up or fall short, tells us to quit, or when we get serious about our Christian life, tells us we'll never make it, or tries to strike fear in us about how the world will react. The reason why I'm basing my reflections off the spiritual combat is I read this book once a year, but it's because life is combat. I know the combat theme can be overplayed in Christian circles, granted. Okay, I grant it. And it can come off as cheesy and stuff. But the fact of the matter is we have an enemy that's the world, the flesh, and the devil, and we have to fight back. And we must be active about our spiritual lives. We must be working diligently through God's grace to cut the chains that tie us to the worthless goods of this world, so that our wills are then free to live an active life of pursuing heaven by the aid of God's grace. And then, God willing, he can raise us up to himself, or we can contemplate himself in deep prayer and a preparation for eternal life. That's what life's about. And fellas, that is the one thing that'll feed our soul more than anything else. So I like Father Lasance's book because he speaks in a straightforward way. I've read these passages I've shared with you guys to students in the past, and there's something about them that just fires our soul. So I hope as we get to this halfway point in Lent, that maybe this brief reflections and the word of encouragement he had to give here will help put a fire in your belly to finish Lent strong. So I hope you guys have a blessed week. Keep up the good work. I'll talk to you next time. God bless.